Welcome to the Broncos Podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Hope you had a wonderful holiday. You're able to see family, friends, relatives, at least the ones you wanted to see, have some good food, get some great gifts. It's that time of year. It's happiness, it's joy. It's also sadness. There's a lot of tension around this time of year. So hopefully you're enjoying it. A lot of people get time off at this part of the calendar through the new year. So hope that's the case for many of you. And you're still able, Broncos country, to enjoy and savor what this season has been. But the reality is, even with 9 wins, this team has reframed expectations. And let's be honest, if they lose the final 2 games, it would be a disappointment. I picked them to win 6 games, so I'm not going to crush them. But if they finish with a 3-game losing streak, needing only win to reach the playoffs, wow, would that be a cheese grater to the shin. So Broncos have a real chance to beat the Bengals. And it feels like, based on all my readings and being around media folks this week, I'm more optimistic than others about this. I believe the Broncos are going to win, and I'm going to tell you why. There's some keys to this game. It's a winnable matchup. It's a frightening matchup. The Broncos are underdogs because of the Cincinnati's offense. But I see it, Broncos country, as a winnable game, which would then be an upset based on the line. But if they do it, they go to the playoffs for the first time since Super Bowl 50 season of 2015. We're going to get to all of it coming up after the break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggett Injury Law a call. Their motto, with us, it's personal. That's because it is. I've known Darby Hoggett forever. We became good friends. We watched our boys play baseball across the country. He's the one that said, Troy, you got to do a podcast. He's the one that told me, hey, they got to get Garrett Bowles signed. Darby follows the Broncos. I'm his good friend. Many of his clients become his good friends. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks again. So again, if you've been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work, give Darby's team a call. That number, 1-833-HOGGATT, 1-833-HOGGET, or visit their website at hoggettlaw.com. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college hoops, NHL, even UFC. So head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use this promo code. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Broncos country, you should be in a good mood. I'm going to turn my light on too so you can see me better. Lighten this holiday season with some holiday light. But you should be in a good mood. The Broncos have won 9 games. They need to win one of the final 2 to be a playoff team. They're staring at a potential 7 seed at the Bills. Don't worry about that. Don't fret about that. That's down the road. Getting to the playoffs matters. I mean, people that are like, I don't want them to go to the playoffs because they'll get smashed. Stop thinking that way. That's fatalist thinking. The other one I don't understand is, if they backed into the playoffs by beating the Chiefs team, not playing the starters. Who cares? Chiefs have earned the right to rest their starters. The Broncos, again, picked to win 5 games by Vegas. They're going to apologize for beating the team that's resting its players? Give me a break. But I don't want to see them back in. And that's the thing I want to talk to you about today on the podcast. I don't think they're going to back in. I believe the Broncos are going to beat the Bengals. Now, listen, I'm not saying it with complete conviction because this Broncos team, it's been streaky at times, and their defense is, frankly, in a bit of a rut these last 3 games. But, hey, if you're following my colleague at Parker Gabriel or Ryan McFadden, who will all be in Cincinnati covering the game on Saturday, Riley Moss is back at cornerback. And it just speaks to how remarkable he has been this season, that his return is one of the big reasons I think they're going to win on Saturday. But let's start with the big picture stuff, the macro. Merry Nixmas and Happy New Year. Yes, it's going to be a Happy New Year, I believe, because I think it's going to include a playoff berth. And it's Bo Nix helping deliver in this situation. Here's the deal, Broncos country. Bo Nix has exceeded expectations. I think we can all agree on that, right? when you look at his overall stats, they're impressive. They're impressive. When you're talking about a rookie that was the sixth quarterback taken in the first round, and I think if he had come out in this year's draft, he'd be the first overall pick. And I know everyone loves Shedeur Sanders, but NFL people I talk to, I mean, especially after watching Knicks now, they really like Knicks. Really like Knicks to the way he plays the NFL game. Shedeur Sanders has more talent, no doubt, but he's going to have to learn not to hold on to the ball. And I'm hoping he's watching Caleb Williams' tape this year, realizing like running around and taking 8-9 seconds doesn't work for anyone other than really Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. The rest of the world, the mortals, you got to get rid of the ball. It's about being on time and on target. And Shedeur certainly has that in his repertoire, but he has a habit for holding on to the ball, and you can't get hit consistently like he did in college and stay healthy. So, about Bo Nix, whether he'd be the first pick in this draft or not, doesn't matter. He was the sixth. But his season, 22 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 64.3 completion percentage, 3,235 yards. Against the Chargers, he played well. But again, there was a flaw in that Chargers game plan that I felt like the Broncos did not punish the Chargers enough with the secondary that was compromised. When you look at the game sheet, they put out game sheets and these game books that are the official stats for the NFL. It has a play-by-play of it, and it describes every play. And of the 40 passes that Bo Nix attempted, 36 were characterized as, quote, short passes. I think at one point it was like 13 completions in a row, either at or behind the line of scrimmage. And again, I don't disagree with that in some cases. The problem is it relies on more execution with blocking and missed tackles and yards after catch. That the latter specifically, not a strength of the Broncos outside of Marvin Mims Jr. You know, that's just not who they are. They need to think in terms of pushing the ball downfield. They need to think in terms of pushing the ball downfield against the Bengals. And that is why I believe Bo Nix can have success, because there is a clear path for the Broncos and Knicks to get this game. Sean Payton's made it very simple for the players. His messaging is get to 10. It's not exactly, Mel Gibson in Braveheart, but it is a clear message that, hey, you want to get to the playoffs, get to 10. You don't have to worry about anything else. But I think it's going to be gifts from 10, as in number 10, Bo Nix. Because this Bengals defense, the reason the Bengals have long odds, even if they were to beat the Broncos, to get to the playoffs, is because of the fact their defense stinks. And it's not like a one-off in this kind of anomaly game like the Broncos had against the Dolphins in that debacle last year that basically screwed up their stats for 2 months. The Bengals have been bad for months. And if you want to tell me, Troy only gave up 6 points to the Browns, I don't want to hear it. For whatever reason, the Browns started Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he makes Tim Tebow look more accurate than a DNA test. I mean, he's not an NFL quarterback. So if you want to put your cap on that, go ahead. I'm not. That is an outlier. But the message seems simple with get to 10, then just run the ball, play keep away from Joe Burrow. Just play keep away from Joe Burrow because he is on an all-time heater, folks. If it were not for their team's sorry record at 7-8, he would be right in the middle of the MVP conversation. There's still a chance Lamar Jackson wins it, too, back-to-back. As much as we all love Josh Allen's season and his ties to the area with his collegiate stardom at Wyoming, I mean, you could stack up Lamar Jackson's numbers against anyone right now, and he pretty much wins it. Now, again, you've got 2 games left against bad opponents for Allen, so he still could do it. But I don't know if he'd play the last game, if their seed's locked in at a number 2, because they can't beat a 1 now. But Lamar Jackson has put it down. But Joe Burrow, folks, this guy is having a year. He's had 7 straight games with at least 250 yards passing and at least 3 passing touchdowns. I mean, yikes, right? But there's always a but, it feels like, with bad teams or marginal teams. The Bengals are 4-3 in those 7 games. And for all All the talk about the Broncos can't beat anyone good, have only beaten one team with a winning record. They haven't beaten any good quarterbacks. And I would say that's not true because they beat Baker Mayfield and they beat, even if he's a washed up Aaron Rodgers, they beat Mayfield, they beat Aaron Rodgers. So it isn't that they haven't beaten any good quarterbacks. Mayfield specifically has had a pretty big year, aside from the picks. His numbers are pretty big. But the Bengals are 0-7 against teams with winning records as well. And Joe Burrow, with those stats I told you, 4-3 his last 7 games. Why is that? Well, it's because the Bengals give up huge plays. They get absolutely gashed defensively. And if you don't believe it, go back and watch Russell Wilson against the Bengals. Like 400-plus yards passing. It was one of the best games of his career. In the 3 games since the Steelers have lost, he's averaged about 150 yards passing and is a turnover machine. Against the Bengals, he looked like an MVP candidate. But they make a lot of quarterbacks look good. And that's what I want you to understand. As much as we want to believe, play keep away from Joe Burrow. Run Audric Estime. Sean Payton has it on his play sheet. Run it. He could tattoo it to his forehead, and I won't believe it. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher since he took over. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher, the Broncos, in 32 games under Payton. Latavius Murray's 103-yard effort in the 2022 season finale for Jerry Rosburg, that's their last one. So as much as the Broncos talk about it, and I think they'll run a little more, I'm not going to buy it. Sean Payton loves to pass. It's who he is. It's what he does. It's the identity of this offense. Whether we like it or not on some days, that's who they are. And in this week, there's a chance for big plays. Could the weather play a factor? Yes, it could. It could be rainy, could be windy. I don't want to hear it. The Broncos, in a shocking admission this week, including by Payton and more candidly by Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, admitted they did not prepare for rain in that Jets game. And if you'll remember, that Jets game, it looked like Bo Nix, an Oregon Duck, had never played in precipitation. Like, it was so bad. I'm like, I thought they were going to have to bench him. He was throwing hand grenades. But they admitted they didn't prepare the balls properly because each team gets to prepare their own. I think it's 12 footballs. I got to look up in my email, but it is the rule how many they can prepare. Your team equipment guy prepares it. Those are the ones you take into the game. Even as a visiting team, those are the ones you prepared. And in a shocking admission, the Broncos admit they didn't prepare for rain. So the footballs that you would prepare that could deal with the rain a little better, the way you lacquer them up, get them all ready, they weren't ready. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. That's what they're saying. But Nix did not look comfortable in the rain. I don't want to hear it. He's got to be the postman. You deliver in all conditions. And he's got a chance against this Chargers team. Because the Chargers, listen to these numbers. The Bengals have yielded 28 plays of more than 20 yards over their past 7 games. 28. They yielded 9 to the Steelers and 8 to the Chargers in losses. They blow assignments. At times, they look allergic to tackling. Trey Hendrickson, a star. But the rest of their defense has had issues throughout the season. They will give up big plays. The issue? Will the Broncos take advantage of it? Will they look a little more vertical or use crossing routes to get some more space? Because the last couple games, they've been dink and dunk. They've produced one play of 20 yards or more against the Colts and Chargers. That was a 53-yarder to Mims. Even that bolt of lightning, if you will, was a short completion with a long gain. They need to challenge the Bengals vertically. They need to push the ball downfield. Nick should have time. The Bengals do not get a pass rush. They don't get many sacks. This is a team he should have time against. Use your mechanics. Stay sound with your base and your feet. Look downfield for those crossers to Sutton. Look for plays for a Franklin and or Mims. They've got to connect on like 3 plays to 4 plays of more than 20 yards. And remember how Knicks flipped the Browns game? Do we remember that? The 93-yarder to Mims. They need a few, not 93, but they need, again, I'm saying 4 probably of 20-plus yards to win this game. Because Joe Burrow, folks, is not going to let up. Trust me when I say he's not going to get conservative. They have nothing to lose. Nothing other than just another game. So that's number 1. How, Troy, can the Broncos beat the Bengals? They do it by challenging and pushing the ball downfield. You need to run enough to set up play action. with estimate preferably. I'm tired of screaming for him. I'm tired of saying he should be the guy, but that's part of it. They need him to have 15 carries, 75 yards, set up the play action for the deep strikes. But Sean Payton has shown himself, and when someone shows you themselves over and over, you believe it. He loves the pass. It's what he does. He designs great routes. He gets guys open. So take advantage of it against this Bengals secondary. But for the Broncos to pull it off, on the flip side of that, they've got to neutralize Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, over his last 7 games during this time that Burrow is on fire, he's averaging over 100 yards a game, more than 1 touchdown a game, 9 touchdowns. He is having an absolute bananas year where he's threatening to get to, 18, 19 touchdowns for the season, 1,700 yards. I mean, you want to know what a superstar receiver looks like? With all due respect to you, those of you who think it's Courtland Sutton, Jamar Chase has had more yards in the last 7 games than Sutton's basically had this season. That's who, this guy is. He and Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp when he was right, Puka Nacua, that's what a superstar receiver looks like, is crazy numbers. So how do you neutralize that? Hello, Pat Surtain. He is in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. TJ Watt did nothing in these last 3 games really for the Steelers. This is the award for Pat Surtain. He's got a chance to win it. If he goes out there on Saturday and neutralizes Jamar Chase, where he has 4 catches, 34 yards, no scores, I think Pat Surtain could win it. He really could win it. And just as I said earlier that Nick Bonito has to have a big game in one of my columns, you can see all my stuff at the Denver Post. Pat Surtain's got to come up huge in this game. If you're going to be a playoff team, you need your best players to play their best when it matters most. Pat has got to follow around Jamar Chase as much as possible. I know they're going to try to move him to the slot some, but you got to move it. You cannot let Chase have a Jerry Jeudy type game. Let's be honest here. You can't. Surtain has neutralized receivers all year. The quarterback rating against him, if the quarterback just threw the ball into the ground rather than at him, he'd have a better rating. That's how dominant Surtain has been. But this is a huge game for him. Chase, along with Justin Jefferson, the 2 best receivers in the league. Basically, this is great on great. If Surtain can go out there and neutralize him, you're not going to stop him. Stop with that. He's going to get his catches. Just like when Surtain has played Devontae Adams. He's had his way with him a few times, and Devontae had his way with Surtain in a game. Walk up, they beat him in overtime. But they need Surtain to win this battle. And if that, again, at the end, it's 4 for 40, 5 for 50, no touchdowns on 12 or 13 targets. That's a win, folks, if you look at the context of what Chase has done over these last 7, 8, 9 games. So Pat has to step up and play his best game. It's not even stepping up. It's just play the game he plays every Sunday. If he does that, then the Broncos are going to win because it takes Chase out. And T. Higgins is listed at questionable with a knee injury, ankle issues, so he looks like he could be compromised, and that sets up to an even better matchup for Riley Moss. Riley Moss, Sean Payton made clear on Friday, will be back. He's good to go. He's missed the last 3 games. And you can call it coincidence or not, the Broncos defense, specifically secondary, has really struggled without him. Really struggled without him. Levi Wallace was so bad, he got cut. And they're hoping to bring him back to the practice squad. But he was so bad against the Browns, they cut him. They benched him, and now he's cut. That tells you how much they've missed Riley Moss. His initial replacement got cut. Now, Chris Abrams-Drain has been nice there. But the problem is, with Moss out, and this is a little nerdy, getting into the weeds a little bit, the Broncos are playing way more zone defense than they have when they have Moss in there. When Moss is in there, they're able to play more man coverage. And in playing more man coverage, it allows them to be more exotic with their pressures. And while they've been getting sacks the last 3 games, they're not consistently getting pressure. And that's just as important as sacks to getting off the field on 3rd down, to getting off that field, that big stop at midfield on 4th down if the Bengals are going to go. Because the Bengals, again, there's going to be a lot of 4-down situations for the Bengals. They're not playing for anything but a win here. They're all in, and they know their defense better than anyone. But Moss being back allows you to play more man coverage. And I would guess he will have T. Higgins. They got Gesicki. I mean, they have a great, great offensive receiving core, tight end. They are absolutely lethal. But now with Moss back, paired with Surtain, Jaquan McMillan, it moves Drain into more of a nickel role if you need him. You got something. But against this Bengals offense, you can't have communication breakdowns. You got to tackle well in space. You cannot be playing hero ball. Because if you do, you will give up touchdowns. Not first downs. You'll give up touchdowns. And for me, the Broncos have a chance to win this game, but you can't make it some crazy track meet where you're trying to think the offense is going to score with a number starting with 4. It's not happening on the road. Let's be realistic here. But they have a chance to win this game. And I'm going to make a prediction here shortly. But it is there for them, folks. With Riley Moss back, Pat Surtain on Jamar Chase, Moss on T. Higgins, or moving around, you play more man defense. It frees up Vance Jospeh to be a little more exotic with his blitz, a safety blitz with P.J. Locke, a safety blitz with Brandon Jones. Create a mismatch then through blitzing for a Nick Benito to get a strip sack or Jonathan Cooper. That's how you win this game. You got to play the chess match. And with Moss back, you have more power, more things, more tools at your disposal. Because the Broncos, they got to look through the windshield. You can't look in the rear view if you're the defense. The defense has carried them this season for long stretches. The last 3 games, it's been shaky. It's been shaky. But this is a chance for them to get right. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not this Bengals offense, but you can get right. Because if you don't, is it going to come down to the Chiefs, folks? You see the headline? I don't think any of us want that, really. You don't want us to feel like they're backing in. But the Broncos need not apologize for getting into the playoffs. In a season of transition where you're paying Russell Wilson $53 million not to play for you. So, I mean, come on. Your dead cap money is near the top of the NFL. So if you get to the playoffs in a year of transition with a rookie quarterback, Nix is attempting to become the first Broncos rookie quarterback to lead the team to the playoffs since John Elway in 1983. So it's not – it doesn't diminish it. I just don't think any of us want to see it. We want to see them win their way in. We want, because of the nature of how this team has surprised us, because of the nature of their culture, their investment, the pride they've shown, the way they've stood up and given Broncos country something to be proud of. You want to see them win and get in. And that's why, again, better to solve it this week than come down to one game. But the Chiefs, by all indications, are going to sit players. They wrapped up the number 1 seed on Christmas Day in thrashing the Steelers. And unfortunately, as much as it pains me to admit, the Chiefs are playing their best football right now. And it feels like maybe they treated the first 12, 13 weeks as practice. But with Hollywood Brown back, Kelsey healthy, Patrick Mahomes playing his best football, and he is still amazing on third down, folks. Third down and fourth quarter. His stats overall are not great. They're not. But he's the best in the league right now on third down in the fourth quarter. But they're better offensively right now with the return of Hollywood Brown. You got the kid Worthy playing well. Their defense, even without Chris Jones against the Steelers, look good. I still think they can be picked off because if you watch, when the Ravens play their best, they can beat anyone. Lamar Jackson, he's going to Canton. He's a Hall of Famer. But at some point, he's got to do it in the playoffs. He's got to do it in the playoffs. And if they remember to run the ball, maybe they're the team to do it. Maybe this is the year the Bills do it. But there's 3 teams in the AFC that I think could get to the Super Bowl. And that is certainly the Chiefs, the defending champs, looking to become the first ever team to win 3 straight Super Bowl titles. There's the Ravens, and there are the Bills. The Steelers are out. The Texans and C.J. Stroud are dissolving before our eyes. The Chargers are not a Super Bowl team this year, and neither are the Broncos. But the Chiefs, after playing 11 games in – well, excuse me, not 11. It felt like to them, I'm sure, 3 games in 11 days, all wins. They are looking to rest people. And everyone's like, well, they'd have a 23-day rest because they didn't have the bye for the playoffs. All indications are based on Andy Reid's history and what he was saying after the game, the posture he was taking, is they would rest their starters. So that means if you're the Broncos, you'd face Carson Wentz, not Patrick Mahomes. You would face Dawson, not Travis Kelce. Chris Jones is already dealing with an injury, so I don't see any chance he plays. So you have a chance to go up against their second string. Now, maybe they play the starters a quarter. I just don't see it with Mahomes dealing with an ankle injury. If he's out, it allows you to take some of the linemen out. So we'll see. Isaiah Pacheco is probably still going to be in there. He needs reps because he's missed a lot of time. And their defensive guys are not going to bench the whole defense. And again, be like similar to a preseason game. A lot of twos, maybe a few ones mixed in. It becomes a very winnable game if it's Wentz starting. It does. And I don't want it to come down to that. But if it does and you beat the Chiefs, you beat the Chiefs. You beat the Chiefs. Who cares? They lost years ago when Patrick Mahomes dislocated his kneecap for like 2 hours. Was it Matt Miller? Matt? I can't think. Matt something or other. Backup quarterback came in and beat him. The Chiefs have beaten them in every which way. The reason you don't want it to come down to the Chiefs, even if they're playing their reserves, you're 1-17 against them in your last 18 games. But the Broncos would be a favorite at home with everything on the line. It could be a weird game. Chiefs could be taking some chances. Who knows? But I don't think they're going to need it, folks, and here's why. I believe Bo Nix is going to produce big plays, like I said, around 4 big plays of 20-plus yards. I believe they're going to run Estime enough to set up play action for some of those big plays, whether it's Mims or Troy Franklin. Nix and Troy Franklin are due. We all agree, right? They're due for a big play. The odd chemistry between those two is just so weird. They're due to connect on a big play. So I believe that's going to happen. I believe with Pat Surtain back paired with Riley Moss, the defense is going to get its bearings back. It's going to regain its traction. It's going to play well in context of the opponent. And I don't think you're going to need the Chiefs. I don't think you're going to need the Chiefs game. You'd want to win it. You want to get to 11 wins. Maybe you could sneak a 6 seed. I doubt it because the Chargers swept you. I don't even know what that looks like. The Broncos are basically deadlocked into the Chargers would have to lose out and the Broncos would have to win for that to happen because the Chargers have the tiebreaker because they've swept the Broncos this year. But if you're the Broncos, you beat the Chiefs, you go 3-3 in the AFC West, you take that. At some point, that's got to become 4-2, but you take it. And again, I think they're going to beat them. I think you're going to beat them. My prediction, Broncos 30, Bengals 29. It's one of those games going to be a blast to watch. It's going to be crazy. And it's going to take some of the biggest moments we've seen. And I think Knicks will meet the moment. I think this defense will improve. And I think the defensive issues that have plagued the Bengals all year catches up to them in a great game that the Broncos win. So there you go, Broncos country. That would make for a nice happy new year leading into the Chiefs game. Regardless if they lose, they still have a chance. But it would be spectacular for the Broncos and Broncos country for the Broncos to win their way in, beat a quarterback like Joe Burrow. He would easily be the best quarterback they've beaten this year and put a stamp on what has been a remarkable turnaround this season. Folks, I could not do this podcast without the help of Nate Lundy of Mile High Sports, Darby Hoggett, my A1 from day one, who is the one that got me to do this podcast in the first place. Of course, Bet Online, and my guy, Big A, behind the board, said he had a great holiday. I tend to believe him. Hopefully the Buffs win on Saturday, CSU wins on Saturday, and the Broncos reach the playoffs for the first time since 2015. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness, that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.